The Zenthar sovereignty had ruled the stars for millennia, their dominion uncontested. Their crystalline warships glided through the void with an elegance that belied their destructive power. The high strategist Zilnar observed the holographic display aboard the Shard of Dominion, the flagship of their fleet. Humanity's pale blue planet hung in the void, an unremarkable sphere teeming with life the Zenthar deemed chaotic and primitive. Humans, Zilnar mused, his resonant voice carrying a note of disdain. A species whose rise is an aberration, born of disorder and driven by emotion. They lack the discipline of the Order. The Order, the Zenthar's governing philosophy, prized perfection, control, and unyielding logic. It was this adherence to the Order that had elevated them to supremacy. Yet the humans, with their disjointed societies and crude technologies, had managed to evade subjugation longer than anticipated. They resist like insects against the tide, scoffed strategist Limra, her mandibles clicking with amusement. Their resilience is a byproduct of desperation, nothing more. Zilnar's crystalline eyes narrowed. Desperation, perhaps, but desperation unchecked can breed unpredictability. Still, as the fleet prepared for the final assault, Zilnar dismissed the thought. The humans were inferior. They would shatter like all others before the will of the Zenthar. The bunker walls trembled as the ground above absorbed yet another impact from the orbital bombardment. Commander Elena Vasquez steadied herself against a steel support beam, her grimy fingers gripping the cool metal as she surveyed the small group of survivors. "Damage report," she barked, her voice carrying authority despite the weariness that tugged at her every word. A young technician, barely out of academy training, responded through a cracked datapad. "Orbital strikes have taken out the Eastern Defense Grid, Commander. No communications with the European coalition. We might be the last organized force left on the continent." Elena's jaw clenched. She glanced at the ragged collection of soldiers and engineers working tirelessly at their stations. Their eyes bore the weight of a losing war, but not a single one looked ready to surrender. Humanity didn't surrender. In the corner of the room, Dr. Amara Singh, a leading xenoanthropologist turned wartime advisor, reviewed the latest scans of the enemy fleet. She addressed Elena without looking up. "The Zenthar have underestimated us," she said, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around her. "They view us as primitive, chaotic. It's why they didn't wipe us out immediately. They think we're irrelevant." Elena snorted. "They'll learn, soon enough." The scene outside the bunker was apocalyptic. Ash rained down like snow from the burning remnants of nearby cities. The air was thick with smoke, but above it, the Zenthar fleet loomed like a silent predator, confident in its dominance. Humanity's weapons had barely scratched their crystalline hulls. Still, in a dimly lit corner of the bunker, Sergeant Marcus Cole and his squad worked furiously to assemble something unconventional. Scraps of alien tech scavenged from downed Zenthar drones were being jury-rigged into a makeshift weapon. "This'll give them something to think about," Marcus muttered, tightening a bolt. Elena turned to Amara. "They think they know us because we've been playing by their rules, but if history's taught us anything..." She paused, her gaze hardening. "It's that humans don't play fair." Amara allowed herself a small, wry smile. "The Zenthar believe in perfection. That's their strength and their weakness. They can't fathom improvisation, adaptation." "Good," Elena said, her voice steel, "because that's where we thrive." The bunker buzzed with a renewed energy. Against all odds, the embers of hope still burned. In the face of annihilation, humanity's greatest weapons, its resilience, ingenuity, and the refusal to bow were preparing to strike. The Zenthar flagship hovered in orbit above Earth, its crystalline spires glowing faintly as it absorbed the energy of the planet's sun. Inside its Grand War Council chamber, Overseer Corvus observed the battle below through a shimmering projection. His aides stood silently, their eyeless, elongated faces betraying no emotion. "The humans persist," one of his strategists noted, gesturing to a region where resistance fighters had managed to dismantle an alien walker. Corvus regarded the scene with mild interest. "They are insects struggling against the inevitable. Their desperation only delays what must come." But deep down there was an irritation Corvus couldn't entirely dismiss. By now, the resistance should have been crushed. The humans' inferior technology, disorganized tactics, and emotional decision-making were no match for the precision and might of the Zenthar. Yet here they were, still fighting, still adapting. It was unseemly. Below, on Earth, the humans weren't merely surviving, they were evolving in real time. The makeshift human outpost in the remains of Berlin was barely a blip in the grand scope of the Zenthar invasion. To Commander Elena Vasquez, though, it was the heart of a coordinated counterstrike. "Cole, is the prototype ready?" she asked, her eyes darting to the crude assembly of alien tech her team had been working on for days. "Ready as it'll ever be," Sergeant Marcus Cole replied. The device was a fusion of Zenthar crystalline circuitry and human ingenuity, a weapon capable of disrupting the Zenthar's telepathic communication network. "They rely on perfect synchronization," Dr. Amara Singh explained to the assembled fighters. "If we disrupt that, even momentarily, they'll lose their greatest advantage." Momentarily was the key word. The device's power source was unstable, and its effects would only last minutes. But in war, minutes could mean everything. Corvus's confidence began to waver when the first disruption rippled through his fleet. He felt it like a faint tremor in his mind, a momentary lapse in the psychic link that united his forces. On the battlefield, the result was chaos. Zenthar soldiers faltered mid-strike. Walkers stumbled and collapsed as their operators lost synchronization. "What is happening?" Corvus demanded, his usually calm demeanor cracking. "Unknown interference," an aide reported. "Localized to the human resistance zone." The Overseer's mandibles clicked in frustration. "Eliminate them. Send the Scourge." The Scourge was the Zenthar's most devastating ground weapon, a massive biomechanical beast designed to decimate entire armies. The humans would have no answer to it, or so Corvus believed. Elena watched as the Scourge descended from the sky, its massive form blotting out the sun. The creature's legs, a grotesque fusion of metal and sinew, tore through the rubble with ease. Its mouth split into four serrated jaws, emitting a guttural roar that shook the ground. "All right, people, this is it," Elena shouted. "Remember the plan. Stick to your roles and we might just survive this." The plan was madness, but madness was all they had left. The Scourge was designed to adapt to any known enemy tactic, but humans were nothing if not unpredictable. As the beast approached, the resistance fighters scattered, forcing it to divide its attention. Small teams harried it with explosives, drawing it toward preset traps. Cole's squad took up positions on a high ridge, armed with modified Zenthar pulse rifles. "Eyes on the weak spots," Cole ordered. "Cole, we've got about 20 seconds to distract this thing before it tears through Elena's team." The first shot struck true, blasting off chunks of the Scourge's armor-like plating. The creature roared in anger, its tail lashing out and demolishing a nearby structure. Meanwhile, Elena and her team worked to lure the beast into a trap, a deep crevasse hidden beneath a thin layer of debris. "Now!" Elena shouted. Explosives detonated beneath the Scourge's massive feet. The creature faltered, its bulk shifting precariously as the ground gave way. For a moment it seemed they had succeeded. But the Scourge, with its uncanny adaptability, managed to anchor itself using its tail. "Damn it!" Elena cursed. Above, Corvus observed the humans' actions with growing unease. Their improvisation was unlike anything he had encountered in his centuries of conquest. Where other species relied on predictable strategies, humans thrived in chaos. "Prepare to deploy reinforcements," he ordered. Back on the battlefield, the humans weren't giving up. Cole's team launched a second wave of attacks, targeting the Scourge's exposed joints. Sparks flew as the creature's movements became sluggish. Dr. Singh, monitoring the fight from a mobile command post, relayed new intel. "Commander, we've identified a vulnerability in the Scourge's neural control system. If you can reach the base of its spine, you can disable it entirely." "Great," Elena muttered. "Just tell me how we're supposed to get close to that thing without being turned into paste." Cole's voice crackled over the comms. I've got an idea, but you're not going to like it. Cole's plan was simple. Use the prototype device to create a massive EMP burst that would temporarily disable the Scourge's systems. The catch? It had to be activated within close range. Elena didn't hesitate. I'll do it. Commander, no, Cole protested. That's an order, she snapped. Get your team clear, I'll handle this. With the device strapped to her back, Elena sprinted toward the Scourge, weaving through debris as the creature thrashed wildly. Its attention was focused on Cole's squad, giving her the opening she needed. She reached the base of the Scourge's spine and activated the device. A surge of energy rippled outward, enveloping the creature in a cascade of light. For a moment, everything went still. The Scourge let out a final agonized roar before collapsing to the ground. In the Zenthar flagship, Corvus felt the disruption like a knife to his mind. The humans had done the impossible. Again. Overseer, our forces are in disarray, an aide reported. The humans are counterattacking. Corvus clenched, his claws. Impossible. But the evidence was undeniable. On the ground, resistance fighters rallied, exploiting the chaos to reclaim territory. Elena emerged from the wreckage, battered but alive. Around her, the resistance fighters cheered. We're not done yet, she said, her voice firm despite her exhaustion. We've got them on the ropes. Let's finish this. The tide had turned. The Zenthar, for all their superiority, were unprepared for the relentless adaptability of humanity. As the resistance launched a coordinated counteroffensive, the invaders found themselves pushed back. For the first time in centuries, the Zenthar knew fear. In the heart of the battle-scarred city of Berlin, where rubble and ash painted the streets, the resistance made its final stand. Smoke curled into the sky, mingling with the eerie glow of Zenthar orbital strikes. The air hummed with tension as humanity prepared to strike back one last time. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the remnants of what had once been a great museum. Now it served as the nerve center of the human resistance. The prototype device, its core cracked but still functional, pulsed faintly on a table before her. How long do we have until the Zenthar regroup? Eshesked. Dr. Amara Singh, her voice steady despite the chaos outside, replied, Minutes. Their psychic link is re-establishing itself. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it. No, Lena nodded, her jaw tightening. Then we hit them where it hurts. Above the planet on the Zenthar flagship, Overseer Corvus loomed over his tactical display. The human's resilience was beyond anything he had anticipated. They had taken down the Scourge, disrupted his forces, and now they dared to strike at his fleet. They must be exterminated, Corvus hissed. His clawed hand smashed against the console, sending shards of crystal scattering. Prepare the purifier cannon. If we cannot break them on the ground, we will obliterate their cities from orbit. The purifier cannon, a weapon capable of reducing entire continents to molten wastelands, began charging. Its crystalline core thrummed with energy, casting a sinister light throughout the ship. On the surface, Elena's team received the intelligence through their patched-together comm systems. They're charging some kind of weapon, Cole said, his voice crackling. If they fire that thing, Earth is Dodone. Not if we get to them first, Elena replied. Dr. Singh pointed to a hastily drawn schematic of the Zenthar flagship. If we can get this device onto their main power conduit, it could create a feedback loop strong enough to destroy the weapon and the ship. It'll work, Elena said, gripping her rifle. It has Toto. The final assault began with a desperate push. Resistance forces commandeered Zenthar dropships, using their alien technology against them. The ships rose through the atmosphere, battered by anti-air fire, as the humans clung to every ounce of hope. Inside one of the dropships, Elena and her team braced themselves. Cole sat beside her, checking his gear. You sure about this, Co-Commander? He asked. No, she admitted with a wry smile. But we don't have a choice. Their dropship pierced the Zenthar fleet. Alarms blared throughout the flagship. Corvus turned toward his aides, his mandibles clicking in fury. Send all. Units to repel them, he barked. The human assault team breached the flagship's hull, their entry marked by a violent explosion that sent Xenthar soldiers scattering. Elena led the charge, her rifle blazing. The corridors of the ship were an alien maze of crystalline walls and pulsing energy conduits, but the humans pushed forward, their determination unwavering. At every turn, they faced resistance. Xenthar soldiers, taller and stronger than any human, closed in with energy weapons that seared the air. But the humans fought back with ingenuity, using the ship's architecture to their advantage. Cole rigged traps with explosives, while others used stolen Xenthar tech to turn their weapons against them. Elena's team reached the core chamber, where the purifier cannon's energy conduit glowed with an unnatural brilliance. The room was vast, its walls alive with pulsating light, and at its center stood the power conduit, a towering column of crystalline energy. "This is it," Elena said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. Dr. Singh's voice came through the comms. "You'll need to place the device directly at the base of the conduit. Once activated, it'll cause a cascade failure. You'll have seconds to get out." Horvis watched the humans' progress with mounting rage. Their audacity was beyond comprehension. "Deploy the elite guard," he commanded. In the core chamber, the ground trembled as the elite guard arrived. These Xenthar warriors, clad in shimmering armor, moved with deadly precision. "We've got company," Ole shouted, taking cover behind a fallen console. The battle that followed was brutal. The elite guard outmatched the humans in strength and weaponry, but the ID-Git humans fought with a ferocity born of desperation. Elena pressed forward, her focus locked on the conduit. She dodged energy blasts, her every movement fueled by the knowledge of what was at stake. "Cover me!" he yelled, sprinting toward the conduit. Cole and the others unleashed a barrage of fire, drawing the attention of the elite guard. Elena reached the conduit's base and began attaching the prototype device. Her hands worked quickly, guided by Dr. Singh's instructions relayed through her earpiece. Above, Corvus felt the disturbance in the ship's energy field. He knew what the humans were attempting, and for the first time, he felt a pang of fear. "Stop them," he growled, his voice a low rumble. The final connection was made. The device's core began to pulse, its energy building to a critical point. "Commander, you need to get out of there now." Singh's voice was urgent. Elena turned to run, but a blast from one of the elite goo guards sent her sprawling. Pain shot through her leg as she struggled to stand. Cole appeared beside her, his rifle smoking. "Come on, Commander, we're not leaving you behind." Together, they staggered toward the exit as the device reached its peak. The energy in the room became unbearable, a blinding light consuming everything. Corvus felt the explosion ripple through the ship. The psychic link he had always relied upon shattered, leaving him adrift in a sea of chaos. On the surface, the Resistance watched as the flagship began to disintegrate, its massive form breaking apart in a cascade of light and fire. Elena and her team barely made it to their dropship as the flagship erupted. They watched in silence as the once mighty vessel crumbled, its destruction marking the turning point in the war. For the first time in his long life, Corvus felt defeat. As he floated in an emergency escape pod, he reflected on the humans' resilience, their ingenuity, and their unyielding spirit. "They are more than we believed," he muttered, "more than we feared." Back on Earth, the Resistance celebrated their victory, but Elena knew the war was far from over. "We've shown them what we're capable of," she said, addressing her team. "But this is just the beginning. Humanity has proven we can fight. Now we prove we can survive." Above them, the remnants of the Xenthar fleet retreated, the first step in what would become a new chapter for humanity, a chapter defined by resilience, ingenuity, and the unbreakable will to endure. The morning after the Xenthar flagship's destruction was unlike any other humanity had experienced since the invasion began. The skies, once dominated by the alien vessels that cast their shadows over Earth, were clear for the first time in years. The debris of the Xanthar fleet sparkled like faint stars against the blue backdrop, a silent testament to the battle that had been fought and won. In the heart of Berlin, where the resistance had made its final stand, people emerged from the ruins. Their faces, weary and ash-streaked, bore the cautious hope of survivors. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the edge of a crumbled plaza, her leg wrapped in a makeshift brace. She leaned heavily on Cole, who refused to let her stand alone despite his own wounds. "They're retreating," Cole said, pointing to the faint streaks of light that marked Xanthar ships jumping to distant parts of the galaxy. Elena nodded, her expression grim but resolute. "We've won this battle, but the war isn't over. They'll be back." Amara Singh approached, her face lit with cautious optimism. "If they return, they'll find a different Earth. We've proven we can fight, and now we'll rebuild." In the weeks following the destruction of the Xanthar flagship, humanity began the arduous process of reclaiming their world. Across continents, messages of hope and resilience spread like wildfire. Survivors banded together to clear rubble, rebuild homes, and restore the fractured infrastructure that had once held civilization together. The resistance evolved into a unified global council, led by those who had fought on the front lines. Elena, reluctantly but unanimously chosen as a leader, now found herself grappling with the challenges of peace. "We need to prepare," she said during a council meeting in what remained of Geneva. "The Xanthar might retreat for now, but they've seen what we can do. Next time they'll bring something far worse." Singh agreed. "We've learned more about their technology in the past few months than we ever thought possible. If we can reverse engineer their systems, we could create defenses powerful enough to repel them, or take the fight to their world." Meanwhile, scattered remnants of the Xanthar forces that hadn't escaped Earth found themselves hunted. Without their psychic link and central leadership, they were no longer the unstoppable force they had been. Communities worked together to flush out the stragglers, a final act of defiance against their oppressors. One such effort unfolded in the ruins of New York. A Xanthar squadron, cut off and desperate, had fortified themselves in an abandoned skyscraper. Elena joined the operation personally, despite her injuries. "This isn't just about survival," she told her team as they approached. "This is about showing them that no matter where they hide, humanity will rise." Her mission was swift and decisive, ending with the last of the Xanthar on Earth captured or eliminated. It was a symbolic victory that marked the beginning of a new era. Months turned into a year, and the scars of the invasion began to heal. Cities that had been razed were now hubs of activity, with new technologies born from Xanthar remnants aiding in reconstruction. Solar fields and energy conduits built from alien materials dotted the landscape, a sign of humanity's ingenuity in turning tools of war into instruments of renewal. In a small village in what was once rural Kenya, a young girl named Asha stood, with her father, gazing up at the stars. The night sky was brighter than it had been in years, free of Xanthar ships and the ominous glow of their weapons. "Do you think they'll come back?" Shah asked. Her father hesitated, then smiled. "Maybe, but if they do, we'll be ready." Across the globe, children like Asha represented the hope of the future. They would grow up in a world shaped by resilience, one that carried the weight of the past but refused to be defined by it. In Berlin, Elena walked through a memorial site erected in honor of those who had sacrificed everything. Names etched into a towering obelisk glimmered in the sunlight. She paused, her fingers tracing one of the names, her brother, Javier. "You'd have been proud of what we've done," she murmured. Cole approached, carrying a tablet loaded with reports from the council. "They're calling for you," he said, his tone light but respectful. "Another meeting about defense PR protocols." Lena smiled faintly. "Of course they are." As they walked away, Elena looked back at the memorial one last time. The pain of loss was still there, but so was a profound sense of purpose. Humanity had endured the worst, and now it was her mission to ensure they would never face such devastation again. In the distant reaches of the galaxy, Corva sat in a dark chamber aboard a battered Zenthar cruiser. The psychic wounds from the flagship's destruction still ached, a constant reminder of his failure. "They are not what we expected," Corvus said, his voice echoing in the chamber. An aide hesitated before responding. "Shall we plan another invasion, of Overseer?" Horvus's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. "No, not yet. The humans have proven, resourceful. They are not the prey we once believed them to be, Bay." He turned toward a holographic map of Earth, his gaze lingering. "They are predators, now," he said softly, "and they will not re-rest." Back on Earth, a new dawn rose over the ruins and rebirth of humanity. Survivors gathered, not as fractured nations but as one people, united by the knowledge that they had faced annihilation and survived. The world that emerged from the ashes was not the same as the one before the invasion. It was a world forged in fire and resilience, where the scars of the past became a foundation for the future. As Elena stood on the balcony of the new council, headquarters overlooking a city alive with hope, she allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. "This is our world," she said to herself, "and no one will take it from us again." The fight was far from over, but humanity had already won its most important battle, the battle to reclaim its spirit.